Quilty is brought to you by APQS, handcrafted quilting machines. Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Clothworks, inspiring creativity with art on fabric. Hovels Sewing, when you need to cut it close, choose Hovels. B&B, our fabrics, your lifestyle. Quiltology, the urban quilt space.
Quilty.
Today's show is a Blocks A Go-Go show. It's a variation on a very classic 9-patch block. Let's take a look. You know, in my family, lots of crazy stuff happens. Crazy stuff happens in everybody's family. But I don't know why somewhere along the line my family started saying Cray Cray instead of crazy. I don't know how we came about it. You know, these things just happen. But now when I look at a crazy 9-patch block, I just say Cray Cray 9-patch, and it makes me happy. So I'm sort of renaming a block that's actually been around for a while, and I've done a little, I brought a little sample of a larger project that I'm working on with this Cray Cray 9-patch block, and I've laid it out here for you. I've pre-sashed some of these blocks, but the block that I'm talking about is this one right here. This is this Cray Cray 9-patch block, and it's got 3 pieces on the bottom, 3 pieces in the middle, and 3 pieces on the top. But as you can see, they're really wonky and they're sort of set off the angle. And so I'm going to show you a really easy way to do this and to make your very own Cray Cray 9-patch block. Okay, so I'm going to take this away and show you how we achieve this effect on this Blocks A Go-Go show today. And the first thing that I would suggest is that the more fabrics that you use in a scrappy quilt, and that's kind of that's the look you're trying to achieve with this kind of thing, with this kind of project, the more scraps you use, the better. But for this demo, I'm only going to use 3 different kinds of fabric because that is a better way, sort of a simpler way to show you how you need to be moving your fabric around as you're cutting your pieces, okay? So right here, I've gotten 3 pieces of fabric, and these are cut, what are they? Let's see here. They are 10 inches square. Okay, I've got this pink on top, I've got a really cool Clothworks makes this great red and white check, and I've got this red variegated on the back, okay? So that's what you start with. You start with this square piece, 3 pieces stacked, all right? And then you get to be very creative. Instead of measuring out like 2.5 inches in or 3 inches and a quarter or whatever, you get to slice through this stack of fabric pretty much any old way you want. You don't want to go too deep, and I think the camera, if Matt can get this close, you can just slice off. What you want to do is you want to slice off a wedge on the right side of this stack. Don't go too deep because you don't want to cut across too much of the bias here. So just give it a little bit of an angle, make it look a little exciting, and go ahead. Gotta get my klutz glove on. Don't forget that. And slice off a chunk of this fabric, this stack of 3, okay? And once you make your cut, you move your fabric away. And I pinned that all together. You don't really need to pin it if you just have a stack of 3. Move the top layer to the bottom. Simple as that. Move top to bottom. And you have the same thing, basically, only you've switched up your fabrics, okay? So now it's as simple as sewing right sides together. You flip this over and sew these 2 pieces together, just like that. You sew these 2 pieces together, like that, to make your square back again, the square that you just sliced, and this side to this, okay? And as you're doing this, here's a tip, by the way, really make sure your points are lined up exactly. And I would give it a pin. And so I've done some of these ahead of time. I'm going to move these to the side. So I made my cut, and then I put right sides together, and I made the 1/4 inch seam. Just sewed it on my sewing machine just like that. And once I've sewn that, bring it over to my pressing surface. I set my seam, and I open it up. And here I've like restored the square that we originally cut, right? So let's take a look at it. Awesome. So once I do that, I basically do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to put my ruler at an angle. It can kind of be the angle that I choose. And you make your cut just like that. And then what you did before. You need a little bit more of a punch right there. It happens. So now you take your top fabric and move it to the bottom once again and join this to this and so on through your stack. And when you do that, what you end up with, put that over there, is a little something like this. Okay, but we're not done yet. So the next step is to flip the block and basically repeat that process. You always stack 3. Now I've just got 1 out here right now because we're doing that for time, but you put your ruler down, you make a cut across, and you switch up, so you always have a randomized system going on, and you have the piece that's on the top that you can see on the top of the stack goes to the bottom, and you always have a random order of these pieces, these wedges, to sew to each other, okay? And once you do that, you do the same thing on the other side. So basically you're doing that process 4 times in this block. So, for example, I've done a little bit ahead of time. I'm going to show you what I've done. So once I had my 3 parts sewn, I cut off a chunk here, sewed it on, and then I cut off another chunk and I'm going to sew it. I flipped it from the top, went to the bottom, so it was randomized. And now I'm going to sew this piece to this piece and finish the block. All right, I will use this pin. Sometimes we leave our klutz glove on, you know, for time, so we don't have to put it on and off during the show. And it gets really hot. I have like a really hot hand. Okay, let's take this over to the sewing machine and do the final piece of the block. And the little quilt top that I was working on at the top of the show that I showed you, that has some sashing pieces added, some cornerstones. That's all extra that I did to add to the design of the quilt that I was working on. This is just the block. From here, you take it and do whatever you like with it. And we'd love to see pictures, so you can always send us those. Okay, let's take this over to the pressing surface and open it up and see our finished Cray Cray 9-patch block. There she is. So with a little bit of imagination and maybe some pinks and whites and reds, this is kind of like a peppermint stick kind of color scheme going on, you can make your own Cray Cray 9-patch block, and it looks a lot harder than it is. It almost looks like it's been paper pieced. There's some funky angles going on, but really it's just creative cutting and a little bit of imaginative stacking. And please try it out, and thanks for joining us on Quilty. You can check out heyquilty.com, join us on Facebook and Twitter, and send us your emails, suggest shows. We'd love to hear from you, and thanks for watching. Bye.
Quilty is brought to you by APQS, handcrafted quilting machines. Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Clothworks, inspiring creativity with art on fabric. Hovels Sewing, when you need to cut it close, choose Hovels. E&B, our fabrics, your lifestyle. Quiltology, the urban quilt space.